Nishta prayasho badvishu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatiyatama shuki bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Nigama kapaturukariram param shukam karamita dravisamitam pibata bhagatam rasamariam mahore hori sikubhavi vakaham. Krishna sadamapagate dhammagyanaha karonasta dvishamasho paronako Twamapi adabhishuta vishutam vibo samyapyali anibidambi bhaksharam pragyahiduho maharitam sankleshanavanamusanti nanyataham. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Sarito Pango Mama Mandir Matergati Matsavasha Padambo Jarada Namadana Mohano Seeman Rasarambi Vamsivada Karsan Veno Shanobga Gopinata Sri Sinaham Divyad Brindarani Kalpadrumada Srimad Radhagana Shima Sanishto Sri Radha Shida Govinda Devo Prasadavihi Sevimanishmanami Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanitaya Cha Jagatitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Mangalang Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Gudha Jaja Mangalam Panari Kaksho Mangalaya Tanohari Om Narayanaya Vidmahi Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tano Vishnu Prachodayate Om Mahadevi Cha Vidmahi Vishnu Panicha Dhimahi Tano Lakshmi Prachodayate Mahalakshmi Namastubhyam Sare Sare Hari Priya Namastubhyam Hare Tapti Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwavanasute Devi Pranamani Hari Priya Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasaya Bhutade Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Sarasati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesa Sanjvari Paskata Desatane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. Well, thanks for joining us, Vi and Rob and a few other people who have not appeared in the comments section, but who are there on Facebook. After the weekend, recapping, our subject matter for last week had been Anu and Vibhu. We are Anu, we are infinitesimal, and God is inestimably large and vast. There is no place where God isn't. So an objective assessment of our own situation, of our own size, of our own Shakti, of our own energy, of our own influence could be depressing. We are not much, to say the least. Could be depressing, save and except for the fact that we are connected to the ultimate source of power. Aham Savasya Prabhu Matasava Bharatiti Madhvaja Buddha Bhava. Krishna says, from me, from the form of Krishna, the same form that killed Kamsa, that appeared in Vrindavan, from that form, millions and millions of universes come. Those who know this, they worship the Lord with all their hearts. When they worship, they make a connection between the Anu and the Vibhu. The infinitesimal mixes with the unlimited infinite, and therefore it gets the benefit of all the power of a loving creator. That's the secret of life. Not elevating yourself through asceticism, through yoga, through philosophical speculation. The goal of life is to cultivate the attitude of a servant. Prahlad Maharaj prayed, no more heavens, no earthly prize, just a servant's heart beneath your skies. In devotion's path, I'll find my way. That's the eternal joy, come what may. No more heavens, no earthly prize, just a servant's heart underneath your skies. In devotion's path, I'll find my way. That's the eternal joy, come what may. Whatever benefits asceticism, philosophical speculation, yoga may have, practicing them does not churn out that eternal joy for which we're hankering lifetime after lifetime, nor does it truly empower us, because after everything is said and done, we are still without a meaningful connection to God. God is the Lord and we are the servant. So what is it that connects the servant to the Lord. No matter how good the servant may be at yoga, no matter how good the servant may be at philosophical speculation, no matter how well born or how aristocratic or how good looking or how well connected the servant may be, it's not about the servant. If the servant makes it about him and ignores or puts under the bed the role of the master, then everything is askew. Everything is awkward. It's disoriented. It's malaligned. You can't have that in a precision piece of machinery. Everything, every cog, every screw, every little computer chip has to be in its right place, performing its function. And when every little part of that machine is doing what it's supposed to do, then the machine becomes very powerful. And every part of the machine benefits from the overall power of the machine. They're no longer useless parts sitting on a shelf in an auto repair shop. They're part of something much greater than themselves. We gave the example last week. A tiny drop of water is insignificant. It won't quench your thirst. It won't cook your food. It won't clean you. You can't take a bath or a shower in a tiny drop of water. There's almost nothing you can achieve with a tiny drop of water. But if you put that water in the Yamuna River, if you put that water in the Mississippi River, if you put that water in the Yangtze River or the Danube River or the Ganges River, then that single insignificant, practically useless drop of water merges with the totality. And then by virtue of its being part, absorbed in the overall river, then it has great potential, has great power. So even though we're infinitesimal, insignificant, we should be aware of three things about God. And this will give us heart. This will not only save us from the depressing thought that we're nothing, but it will empower us. It will excite us. It will inspire us. It will supercharge us for the future. These 3 points. One is that Krishna, God, is always in control. He never says, I tried my best, but it just didn't work out. There were some other factors. There was some other living being who had control, and he, some or other, we conflicted, we interceded, and it didn't turn out like I thought it was. God will never say that. Not only can he make one perfect plan for your life, but he can also make a perfect plan for the life of your spouse, for the life of your children, for your neighbors, even your enemies. Generally speaking, when one person promotes their own self-centered desires, what that translates into is others getting less. It says, Isa vashamidam sarvam yachigan chena jiktena bunjita yatvidaha kashashidanam. That God has created ample resources, ample food, ample shelter, ample means of transportation for each and every inhabitant of each and every one of his millions and millions of planets and millions of universes. But generally speaking, when one living being is inordinately successful in promoting his own desires, fulfilling his own godless dreams, what happens is the excess that comes to him means there's a deficit for somebody else. Taking more than his quota, he leaves others living in scarcity. But God, so that means if he executes his plan perfectly, it's going to exploit somebody else or some other living entity. People sit down every breakfast to bacon and sausage, and that exploits the animals who are killed for that flesh. They eat steak, they celebrate an anniversary, a graduation, a birthday by going out and eating steak. They're indicating by that celebration that their lives are at a certain plateau of success, and yet how much suffering, how many animals have died so they can carve up their flesh with their fork and spoon. But in Krishna's case, he actually is so powerful and so complete. You might have completed all your 10 steps for success. get a promotion, start my own business, move international, move into international markets, hire the right types of employees, and then hit your goal of so much net income every year. And with that net income, buy the house you always wanted, give your kids the best education, drive the best car, et cetera, et cetera. So you might say, yes, everything I set out to do, I set out to do. But at the same time, you wrecked the lives of so many animals and so many other living beings. So by you pursuing your plan for perfection, that actually caused havoc elsewhere. God is so powerful and so precise that he has a plan for perfection for each and every living being. And if we coordinate our plan with his plan, we will be successful. We will achieve eternal life full of bliss and knowledge for ourselves, for our wife, for our children, and be a light to all of the living beings. When we coordinate our plan with God's plan, not only is there no downside, are there no other living beings anywhere who suffer but through the success of our plan, but actually our plan becomes the best plan, the best inner tube, the best lifesaver for other living entities who come within our circle of influence. So Krishna is that plan maker who is so full that in pursuing one plan, other plans don't suffer. Every plan is equally beneficial for every living being. Of course, there's a caveat, there's a condition, and that is that we follow God's plan and not our plan. Mostly the havoc, the disruption, the misery, the suffering in the world, and there's so much of it, it's mind-boggling now, is caused by our disregarding God's higher plan for our life, disregarding God's purposes and pushing our purposes to the forefront. That's the basic cause of all the suffering in the world. Don't blame God. Don't put it on God. God gave enough resources to each and every inhabitant, resident of the planet, including the animals and the aquatics and the reptiles, that everyone could meet their needs and live happily and successfully. Simply, not elaborately, not lavishly, not exploitatively, but there's more than enough for every living entity to live simply. So it's not that God pursues one plan and the other plans are neglected alongside of it. If to the degree, to the degree that living beings are willing to surrender to his plan, then none of them will come into conflict. Prabhupada gave the example in Australia. I was in the room one time. He was talking to some clergyman, Catholic priest. He said, if you put a compass, a compass has one end with a pencil and it has one sharp end. And the idea is you stab that sharp end and you draw a circle. If you're always moving the center point and drawing circles, you have the center point here and you draw a circle. Then you move the center point and draw those circles clash. They come into conflict with each other. But Prabhupada said if you keep the center point fixed, then every circle you draw, whether it be have a circumference of 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 5, they'll all be concurrent. They'll not any of them clash. When we keep the center as Krishna, Aham Bija Pradapita, Krishna says, I'm the seed-giving father of all living beings. When we keep him in the center, then everyone benefits. God's plan can be pursued in such a way that everybody's lives are uplifted, everybody's lives are enriched. So one is to know that God is always in control. That's most heartening thought for us, Anu, tiny, tiny living beings. Another is that God never makes mistakes. God never says, yes, I'm in control, but I made a wrong move. I didn't take into account these other variables and I miscalculated. I made a mistake. I didn't get the result that I wanted. He said that never. He's always in control. And if we coordinate with him by connection, by making the connection through chanting his holy names and thinking of ourselves in a servant's way, cultivating a servant's heart, then his plan for our life will be enacted in the most efficacious way, in the most efficient way, in the most streamlined way, and without any delay or fuss or muss. We and those who are participating with us in our life's journey will go back home, back to Godhead. The fact that we hit bumps in the road, we get detours, we have delays, dead ends, misery, even sudden death on the highway, that doesn't mean that God's plan for a life is not the best plan. It just means that, we haven't been insightful enough to coordinate our plan with the greater plan of God. One of the problems of being infinitesimal is that you're not in control, not at all. So if you strike out in a direction different from that of the supreme controller, then don't be surprised that you don't get eternal bliss, knowledge, and freedom from suffering within the first 24 hours of pursuing your own concocted plan. Conditional all this is that we do our own part. And lastly, God's plan for us is for the absolute best. There's no plan that you could concoct for yourself. There's no self-serving, self-centered plan. No matter how many dollars it involves, no matter how much property it involves, no matter how much influence or power, no matter how many people vote for you, there's no concocted, self-serving plan which will do you more good than Krishna's plan for you. We should put aside our own concocted plans to benefit ourselves and our relatives and just discern through scripture, through association with saintly persons and other devotees. Apply your energy to discern what is God's greater plan for your life, because there's no plan, even if you were able to implement it and become successful in your plan beyond your wildest expectations, that plan still will fall far, 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 far short of what Krishna's plan is, because he is your best friend and he's all powerful. You imagine if your best friend were Mark Juergensmeyer, or Bill Gates, or I don't know, Elon Musk. They were your best friend. They'd do anything for you. You prove your devotion, your fidelity to them. They had no reservations. They had no scruples. They had no concern about your motives. You're not trying to undercut them. You're not trying to usurp their position. You're not trying to be a parasite. You're not trying to take advantage of them. You've indicated through past selfless activities on your part that you're actually willing to sacrifice some of your own comfort in order to support them. And of course, this is a crude analogy, obviously. Very, very crude indeed. But let's say they're contented, for argument's sake, they're contented, they're completely assured in their own mind and their own hearts of hearts that you mean them no harm, that you mean them only good. So there's nothing they wouldn't do for you. There's nothing they wouldn't do to you. We have a devotee right now, Krishna Prasad. She came here from Seattle with her kids. And I watch her day after day after day, her kindness, her devotion, her energy, her sincerity. And I just become disarmed. I'm just totally disarmed by the innocence, the sweetness, the energy, the kindness of this person who Krishna sent in our midst. I'm completely charmed. So what happens when you have your best friend who is charmed by your selflessness, when you have as your best friend the Lord of millions and millions of universes? Your worries are over. You don't have to worry about paying the rent, putting food on the table. Blessings are going to come chasing you down because you're in not God's head. There may be millions of living beings who are depart and distinct and remote. They place themselves remotely from God. So in his head, he's thinking, I have to provide so many grains for food. I have to provide so many liquids to hydrate them, so many reservoirs of water, so much fertile land, so many seeds. I have to provide so much sunshine. I have to provide so much rainfall so that these, my children, get what they need to survive. So that's God thinking with his head about those for whom God is not important in their lives. They've forgotten God. They've basically turned their back on God. So God's looking at them from the back. They've turned away from him. He's looking at them from the back. But still, at least with his head, with God's head, he's still making all the calculations and providing those rebellious, indifferent, cold-hearted children of his with everything they need to live. That God does with his head. But for those small minority of children, Manusinam Sahasrashu Kashit, for that 1 in a million who shows gratitude, who shows appreciation, whose ambition it is to know exactly what God's plan for their life is and to get right into the middle of it. To not just go through the motions of going to church and paying lip service to God, but who want to make their connection with God an affair of their heart. What happens? God then sees those surrendered souls in his heart. So how Krishna reacts to the godless souls as opposed to how he reacts to the God-centered souls is totally different. He doesn't begrudge the godless food and shelter, just like a father will never shirk his responsibility to provide basic necessities for their children. But at the same time, if one of the children is completely in harmony, in coordination with the father, he just wants to do what the father wants done, then that child has captured the heart of the father. The father is thinking with his head about some of his sons, but about a few of his sons, a small minority, thinking with his heart. So God is your friend. And when you chant his holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, then even though all living entities he claims as his parts and parcels, he has special consideration. Samaham Sarvabhutasha Nandameshi Madhya Ye Bhajantitam Ye Tu Teshum Ahami. He says, I'm not favorably disposed towards anyone. I'm not unfavorably disposed. I'm not envious of anyone. I'm equal because all living beings are my children. So just like a father loves all of his children equally, yet having said that, I'm especially disposed in my heart to those who are surrendered unto me. So who would be so unfortunate as not to want to surrender life and soul to that person who is perfect, who is complete, who is infallible, who is in control, and who is your best friend? This is how the Anu assumes unlimited power. This is how the Anu avoids getting all down and depressed about his insignificance and becomes excited, inflated, hardly contain oneself about the possibilities that he sees out there in the future. It is such a powerful vision that we see consistently throughout the stories of the Bhagavatam, that when people they snap into, they click into, just like the cog, when it finds its rightful position in the machine, it just glows. It just goes smoothly. It does its role, and it assumes the power of the overall machine. Devotees feel so connected and so empowered and so deeply satisfied by serving the Lord in the best way that they know how, that despite personal tragedies, despite loss, despite betrayals and unfair situations, they don't miss a step. They don't get crestfallen, disappointed, defeated, pessimistic in those circumstances in which everybody else does. So how many people worship God when things are going fine, when things are going their way? I'm good, my kids are good, my house is good, my income is good, everything's good, God is good. But when something goes wrong, not according to plan, how quickly they start saying, God, why did you do this to me? God, it's not fair. I went to church. I tithed. How could you do this to me? I made a deal with you, God. You're not keeping up to your end of the bargain. How many people are good with God as long as God is their step and fetch it? God is their order supplier. But when it comes to Them being servants and God being Lord, oh, that's a different story. When God starts to exercise his sovereignty instead of being happy, Lord, you've trumped my plan with your plan. That's great. Lord, you've eclipsed my plan with your greater plan. I don't mind that. I'm glad that you gave me that vision. I'm glad that I can see that. And I'm perfectly willing to walk away from my plan and go towards your plan. How many people take that attitude? Nobody. Nobody. When God doesn't do what you told God to do, you blame him. You get all bummed out. You stop going to church. You stop tithing. You stop it. So when the circumstances are up. You're good with God when God's good with you. But when circumstances are down, oh no, then you walk away. We have people in our congregation in Utah that will serve provided the circumstances are right. But when the circumstances don't meet their expectations, we don't see them for months at a time. They boycott, they opt out, they worship at home, or they have their own programs separate. Devotional service is characterized by two features. It's unmotivated and uninterrupted. We don't do service to Krishna, provided Krishna meets our conditions, nor do we interrupt, nor is our service meant to be on again, off again, hot, cold, fair weather service. Our service is meant to be uninterrupted, no matter what the weather, no matter what circumstances or what the conditions, and it's meant to be unmotivated. Not only does our service go on for those who are serious about the process when circumstances are not favorable, but we see time after time after time after time in the stories of the Srimad Bhagavatam how when the circumstances go down, circumstances become, in certain exemplary cases, not just negative, not just down, but they become abominable. Talk about unfair. Devaki had 6 children slaughtered in the prison house right after birth. I mean, that's a whole level of unfair. You might have lost one child, but Devaki lost. Sometimes people lose a child at the age of 13 or 14. At the funeral service, they'll say, I'm not going to mourn the loss of a child, but I'm going to thank God that I had 12 years with this child. God blessed me with 12 years before this child, before he took that child away. That's what they often say. They had at least a blessing of some 10, 12, 14, 15 years with that child. They feel gratitude. Think of Devaki. No sooner with the children, with all of their beauty and innocence and freshness, come out of her womb, and Kamsa came. And right before her eyes, he took them by the feet and bashed them against its nearest pillar. Now that's a whole level of circumstances being down. I don't know what you call it, but circumstances being down is definitely understated. But what happened? One after another, after another, after another, after another, after another, her children were killed before her very eyes. She didn't get a chance to enjoy any of their childhood antics or mischievous or attractiveness. Each time a child was killed, her devotion went up. She didn't go away from Krishna. She went closer to Krishna. She didn't get sloppy in her devotional practices. She didn't blame Krishna in the slightest. She knew that no matter what happens, Krishna's in control. He has the best plan for my life. He doesn't make mistakes, and he has my best interests at heart, better than I could do for myself. So as the circumstances go down, her devotion went up. Gajendra, this is our 130th session talking about Gajendra. What's the main theme? Main theme is, as Gajendra's leg was clamped upon by the crocodile, and initially there was some hope for Gajendra. After all, he's big, powerful, like a mountain. He thought initially, I can just flick this crocodile off and go back to safety. But as the battle raged on and on and on, Gajendra realized that his superior strength was somewhat nullified because he's in the water where the crocodile is stronger. So after the battle had raged for many, many centuries, the advantage gradually went to the crocodile. So slowly, Gajendra's hopes went from 100% to 90% to 70% to 70%. And finally, what happened when Gajendra realized he was a goner? When all hope for restoration had deserted Gajendra, what happened? Gajendra, Elephant King, in danger's grip, his mind stripped of arrogance, his history unzipped, recalled mantras from a previous life, stripped away his attachments like a knife. Formerly King Indradyumna, now in elephant form, yet his prayers echoed, weathering the storm. Mantras resurfaced from the past, transcendental sound, awakening memories profound. Even if a devotee falls from the path, Krishna, the heart, keeps track. At the right time, will take up the slack. He'll carry what we lack. He will get us back home, back to God. What did Gajendra do when all was lost? What did he do when there was no more hope? He hoped against hope. He hoped against hope because we don't worship a natural God. We worship a supernatural God. God transcends all the laws of material universe. When Gajendra had no hope, when the odds against him went from first they were 50-50, and then they were 75-25 in favor of the crocodile, and then they were 90-10 in favor of the crocodile, and then there were 99-1 in favor of the crocodile. When the odds went to 100% in favor of the crocodile, that's the point at which Krishna from the heart took up the slack, carried what we lack, and revived the memory of Gajendra from his previous life. So when he became bankrupt materially, when he came to the end of his rope, as far as his own power was concerned, that was the beginning of Krishna's power. That was the beginning of Krishna's saving grace. The more Gajendra's odds stacked up against him, the more his circumstances went down, the more his devotion came up. Same thing, Devaki in the prison. For Devaki, Kamsa was like the crocodile. Kamsa was Devaki's crocodile, one after one after one, taking away her hopes. Even she had a child. Even she had a girl child. The eighth child that Krishna was switched with Yashoda, and Yashoda had just given birth to a girl who is Subhadra, Krishna's sister, Yogamaya. And Kamsa came in to destroy the eighth child, which had predicted to be a male and which would be his death. And Devaki, she said to her brother, sisters and brothers are generally very close. Brothers can very rarely deny a special request of the sister. So up to this point, her husband, Vasudeva, promised to make each male son available as Kamsa saw fit. He's a man of his word. So he turned each son over to Kamsa, and Kamsa killed them one after another. Devaki didn't say anything. Of course, her mother's heart would have just screamed in agony each time. But she didn't say anything because her husband had made a promise, and she didn't want her husband to break his promise. However, when the eighth child, Kamsa came to get the eighth child, it was a girl. So now she spoke up. Now she protested. Kamsa, the eighth child was supposed to be a boy. It's a girl. You don't have anything to fear from her. Please don't kill her. What did Kamsa do? He said, I'm not taking any chances. And he grabbed her. He grabbed her by the feet and prepared to smash her against the pillar just as he'd done. At this point, Devaki must have thought, nothing works. Nothing works. God, yeah, how tempting it would have been for her to say, Krishna, why? Or at least to look up or roll her eyes or to have some shadow of doubt cross her mind. Nothing of the sort. Nothing of the sort. Her faith was still rock solid. In spite of going from worse to worse to worse to worse to worse to worse to worse. What could be worse for any living being than to be a mother, than to have 6 of your children killed upon birth before your eyes, to have your 7th child a female, and it was predicted that not a female but a male would kill Kamsa, to humiliate yourself before your brother who had already killed 6 of your children, to go down at his lousy feet and beg him to spare a girl child. Now, wouldn't there be a reasonable expectation that even Kamsa, as horrible and sadistic as he was, would see the light, would agree with her? Why kill a girl child? I have nothing to fear from a girl child. And yet, even just how humiliated, how pushed down Devaki was, how any shred of material dignity or respect was ripped away from her, not once or twice, but over and over and over again. And you would have thought she would just be fit to be tied. Curses, blasphemy, expletives would have rushed, vomited out of the mouth of any lesser person. And yet her faith went to a higher level, unconditional, uninterrupted, not according to my will, but Lord, your will be done. You know, the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya paralleled in many ways the pastimes of Krishna. So we read about Sachimata also having produced sons that died at birth prior to producing Lord Chaitanya's older brother Vishwambar, and then finally Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So Devaki lost sons. Sachimata and Jagannath Mishra lost sons. But in each case, though they recognized their own limitations, they recognize that this is a situation over which I have no power. I have no power whatsoever. But because I'm throwing it all up to Krishna, I'm surrendering to Krishna. I'm saying, Lord, I don't see a way, but I know you have a way. Lord, for me, it's not possible, but for you, nothing is impossible. Their faith simply got stronger. It got more firm the more things went against them. Now look around the world nowadays and see how many people are not worshiping God, how many people are not calling out for him, not accepting the process of chanting his holy names. They've got healthy kids. There's no crisis on the horizon, and still they're not worshiping God, even though they have every reason to thank God and to seek the continuation of God's blessings. They couldn't care less. They just think this is my due. Healthy kids, a big house, nice income, a car. Yeah, this is what God owes me. That's their mentality. Now, contrast that with these devotees who are talked about and glorified in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that they have every reason to reject God. They have every reason. The ones who have healthy, happy children have no reason to reject God, and yet they've done so. They go about their lives as if God didn't exist, as if God didn't matter. Maybe if they get in a little trouble, they have a spot of difficulty, they'll, lie down, bend down and say the Lord's Prayer, or they'll go to church on Christmas or Easter or something like that. But for all practical purposes, they haven't got any faith in God's ability to improve and uplift their lives or the lives of their children. They couldn't care less. They take all the blessings, the health, the wealth, the influence for granted, never considering that there might just be down the road a day of reckoning. Now, here are the devotees who have every reason to question God, to give up their faith, to interrupt their devotion. Their conditions are not only not met, but it's like they're ground into the dust. It's like Kamsa has his foot on the neck of Devaki. It's like death is grinding Sachimata and Jagannath Mishra into the dust. Something has taken Gajendra from being flush with power, manic with joy and influence. He was an elephant. He was the king, the most powerful of all elephants. He lived not on earth, but on the heavenly planets. He was down the block from Indra, Varuna, Kuvera. They were on a first name basis with him. He lived in the same neighborhood with the demigods. He had beautiful wives and many, many children and grandchildren. The atmosphere was euphoric, blissful. The Mandara mountain was washed by the ocean of milk, and that combination created emeralds on the seashore. It didn't get any better than that. And into all of that came the crocodile, bringing every asset, every blessing, seemingly, apparently, tumbling down within the snap of a finger, the flip of a coin. It all went south. Gajendra's circumstances went from as up as they can get to as down as they can get. And because he'd been a devotee in his past life, his memory, his prayers echoed, surviving the storm. And the more his circumstances went down, the more his devotion went up. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Many people are flush with blessings. They don't care about Krishna. And if they go to church, they are worshiping Krishna for what Krishna gives them. Our Father art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Give us our daily bread. Give us our income. Give us a big house. Give us a car. Give us nice children. And when God complies, he follows what we want. The Lord becomes our servant and gives us what we want. Then we're okay. We worship God. We tithe. We have a good attendance and record in church. But when it goes against us, then we question God. It's interesting to note that Kamsa made all these arrangements to keep his body safe and sound. He wanted to counteract the omen that the eighth son of Devaki would kill him. So he performed all these atrocities. But it's interesting to note that when he finally brushed aside Devaki's final plea to spare her girl child, and he grabbed that girl child by the feet and he started swinging her to smash her head against the pillar, she slipped out of his hands. You imagine how strong and powerful Kamsa was. Massive forearms and grip like iron. And yet Durga was more powerful than him. He could not continue to hold her. She broke his grasp forcibly and flew up in the air, and she said, "You fool. The person who has killed you, my Lord and Master, has already appeared and been transferred somewhere else." Kamsa had worshipped Lord Shiva in order to kill Krishna. He'd asked Shiva for success in his mission to stamp out all the threats to his safety and well-being. And Shiva's wife is Parvati. So by association, he's praying to Shiva and Parvati. Now Parvati herself, in the form of Durga, has just forcibly distanced herself from Kamsa, flown up in the air, and with great anger, Durga or Yoga Maya is enraged at the atrocities Kamsa has committed. She says, "You are already dead, you rascal. Don't you worship me? You think that I'm going to be a part of your schemes, your sadistic, bloody schemes to keep your carcass alive? You got another thing coming, buddy." So you can imagine Kamsa's shock to see his worshipful deity, the goddess Durga, Parvati's, Shiva's wife, come, and she's really, really ticked off at him. So not only is the Krishna side, the Krishna clan, of course, oppressed and persecuted by Kamsa's atrocities, but his own people, his own side, his own worshipful deities are outraged and want to have nothing more to do with him. So don't follow the path of Kamsa. Follow the path of Gajendra. Follow the path of Devaki. Follow the path of Jagannath and Satyamata. You will not be disappointed. Sometimes it's our best opportunity when we don't see a way. That's a golden opportunity. That's a test. When you don't see a way, when things look dark, That is the best opportunity to keep your faith strong in Krishna. Keep on smiling, keep on chanting, keep on being faithful, keep on trusting the Lord that he's still on the throne. He has a good plan for his life. He never deserts those who are his pure devotees. It may seem so from the perspective of faithless people. These people worship Krishna and they lost all 6 of their sons. This elephant was a devotee of Krishna from his past life, and now he's being dragged into the water by a crocodile. Why should I worship Krishna? It may seem from the vision of the faithless that to worship Krishna is just to invite all kinds of trouble in your life. But you ask Devaki, you ask Sachimata, you ask Gajendra, you ask Prahlad, you ask Dhruva Maharaj, you ask any devotee whose faith is actually somewhat steady and somewhat unmotivated. You ask any who are not fair weather, hot and cold devotees, what has been your realization? What has been the result of your keeping on through the dark, through the doubts, through the danger? What has been the result? When you look back on those situations, would you change anything? And universally, across the board, no, 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 no. In fact, Kunti says, Vipada Shanti Shasha Shantita Bhavatomar Punar Bhavi Darshanam. Kunti says, not only would I not change anything, because in all the dangers that Duryodhana put us through, every time there was extreme danger, there was Krishna there. The extreme danger brought Krishna to our sides. And so now there's the danger is past, our kingdom is restored, our enemies are killed. So I don't, so there's, Krishna's not going to necessarily come to our side. So I want the danger back. I want it back. I don't want circumstances to be up and my devotion to be down. I want circumstances to be down and my devotion to be up. And oftentimes adversity, darkness, challenges, unfair situations are the best platform that Krishna uses for reawakening our Krishna consciousness, for taking us to the next level. So devotees never put conditions on their service, that if you'll meet my conditions, then I'll serve you. They recognize that Krishna controls everything. He's our best friend. His plans are always for good. And his plans are also coordinated with the plans for good of every other living being. So there's no downside. Following Krishna, chanting his holy name, surrendering to him is just win, 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 glory after glory after glory after glory after glory. That's what the example of all the great souls of the Bhagavatam would tell us. That's what they themselves would say. And so if we want to align ourselves with the men and women and elephants of faith of the ancient days, let's keep steady. Let's keep our devotion shining bright in light and in darkness, no matter the fight. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, there's a few comments here I'm not exactly understanding or that don't necessarily jive with what we're talking about, so I'm going to skip over those. Brent says, it's good to know that God is in control. God's plan for your life probably won't be free from strife, but your concocted plan that you think is so grand is nothing compared to connecting your soul as part and parcel of the divine whole. Nice, nice. Kind of out of breath after all that, but that was nice. Binu from Calgary, my partner in performing arts. Thanksgiving is coming. I see turkey for people's celebration. Not a heartening thought, no. Another poem by Brent. A servant may be good at a lot of things, but if he isn't serving the Lord, he isn't properly serving the machine. Like a screw or a spring, we must work for the king. I like that. In a mood of service, we chant and sing rather than serving our own godless dreams. Nice. A servant may be good at a lot of things, but if a servant isn't serving, what is the use? But even serving, Lord, He isn't properly serving the machine. Like a screw or a spring, we must work for the king. In a mood of service, we chant and sing rather than serving our own godless dreams. Anjani Hanuman. Someone named Anjani Hanuman. It's an auspicious name. I've always says, love your classes, miss them when you have to cancel. Radhastami on Wednesday. Teach something about her. I don't know. Yeah, I've told the story about how when I was a new devotee, it was Radhastami. And I've been giving some classes and I was feeling pretty good about myself. I've probably been a devotee a month or so. And it was up to me to give all the classes. I don't know why nobody else wanted to give the classes, but I thought, oh, I'll say something about Radharani. So I didn't have any books open in front of me. I thought I'd just go from memory what I'd read in Teaches Lord Chaitanya and so on and so forth. And I opened my mouth to share something about Radharani, and Krishna struck me dumb. It's like he was saying, who the heck do you think you are to speak about Radharani? And my mind went totally blank. I could not say anything. Finally, we found a teaching Lord Chaitanya. We read some passage about Radharani. So Vaibhavi asked me to speak something about Radharani on Wednesday, but my past experience makes me hesitant to just speak extempore about Radharani. So I'll find some passages from teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Chaitanya Marina, and I will read about Radharani on Wednesday. This has been Motivational Monday, and last thing we do is we go over to Rob to see if he's had time to create a few takeaways. Are you there, Rob?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you for this class.
Haribo, thanks for being here.
All right, so what I got today, Krishna has a plan for every plant, animal, and man.
Nice.
It's not our role to be in control. It's Krishna that makes our soul feel full.
Mm-hmm. Nice. That's two, right? Or is that
Yes.
one? Okay.
In Krishna we trust. It's his plan that's best for us.
Mm-hmm.
Krishna is producer and director. I am just a lowly actor.
Right.
When Krishna is your best friend, you will receive blessings without end. Haribol.
I think you've caught up the main topics, the main themes. You're a good listener, Rob. I overlooked mentioning Chris Dagodd, Cresdagodd. Thanks for joining us. And of course, Britta, I don't really understand your message. Brooke Emily Southam, this is where the 3 morning talks I was telling you about happen. Okay, I think maybe it's a message to Brooke. I'm not sure. Patricia, Haribo, Patricia's there also. Patricia is the donor of our wonderful sweetheart, Oscar Scarlet Macaw. She came to visit him last week. We really enjoyed your being here, Patricia, and we hope that you'll come back often. Bharat Patel, Haribo Bharat from Calgary. Oh, we got both Binu and Bharat from Calgary. Very nice. Very nice. Got something going on in Canada, October 12th. Prem Kishore is organizing a Festival of Colors in Sault Ste. Marie, and I'll be there as the MC and senior rapper. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be October 12th. And then I just got a text from Prafulla. He's organizing the first Rath Yatra in Houston. Prafulla doesn't do anything small. Prafulla is one of the most, in fact, both Prem Kishore and Prafulla are two people I respect above all others as far as organizing festivals go. These two, I mean, I'm a festival organizer, it's where my heart is, so I can recognize other people with genius, brilliance, and talent in this area. Not to say that I have it, but I know that Prem Kishore, who's based out of Thunder Bay, is a brilliant strategist, a brilliant marketer, a brilliant festival organizer, and I'll be with him on October 12th in Sault Ste. Marie, the one in Canada, not the one in Michigan. And the second most brilliant festival organizer I've ever seen in my life is Prafulla. He organized some massive festival of colors when he lived in Michigan. And recently, in the last 2 years, he's moved to Houston. And I've been telling the Houston Temple, you have this guy who's moved in your community. He's an amazing talent. He's an amazing resource. And so I guess the word finally got out, and he did a wonderful multimedia sound and light show for their Janmashtami celebration there in Houston. They must get 25, 30,000 people. And it was the talk of the town. Prafulla is a genius, an amazing, amazing person. And Houston has given him, has started to recognize of what he is capable. And they've asked Prafulla to organize the first ever Houston ISKCON Rath Yatra on November, I forget, 13th or something. And Prafulla has asked me to come. So I'm very, very excited about that. Anyway, just thought I'd mention to you Canadians that I'll be back in the Maple Leaf country in a few weeks' time. All right, that should do it. We've been live for over an hour, and I'm sure you have things to do, as do I. So I'll take your leave for now. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.